North Korea resumes sending hundreds of balloons carrying trash across the border, breaking a weeks-long silence. We take a closer look at what's behind it and what might come next. Korea's economy contracted 0.2% from the previous quarter in the April to June period, partially due to sluggish domestic demand. President Yoon has vowed to inject funds worth $40 million into an autonomous driving complex in the southwestern city of Gwangju as he visited that city for his trademark policy discussion. It's September 5th, 6 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Min. North Korea yet again sent more trash-carrying balloons across the border this morning, the second day in a row. The South Korean government was quick to condemn the action. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae-eun-ji explains more about the reason behind it.
From 9 a.m. to noon on Thursday, North Korea started sending more trash-carrying balloons, following the resumption of its balloon campaign the night before, after around a month. South Korea's military said the North launched around 480 balloons from Wednesday night to Thursday morning, and that around 100 of them, carrying paper and plastic bottles, were found in Seoul and northern Gyeonggi-do province. It advised the public to refrain from touching the fallen balloons and to report them to the police or military.
As for the rest of the balloons, they may have been blown back to North Korea, or there may be some that we have not been able to find just yet. But considering the direction of the wind, we believe there is a possibility that some of the balloons might have fallen in areas that we are unable to observe.
The North has launched thousands of balloons carrying trash in recent months, in protest against propaganda leaflets sent by North Korean activists and defectors in South Korea. In response, the South has been using frontline loudspeakers to blast broadcasts of propaganda messages and K-pop songs. An expert on North Korea says it's also important to look at the timing of the North resuming its balloon campaign.
It's a move to counter anti-North Korea leaflets, and I believe their strategic motive is to create anxiety ahead of Japanese Prime Minister Kishida's visit and the Chuseok holidays.
The South Korean government said voluntary actions from civic organizations cannot be an excuse for the North's provocative actions, calling it reckless behavior. Bae-eun-ji, Arirang News.
During their annual dialogue on extended deterrence this year, Seoul and Washington addressed a counter-response based on the hypothetical scenario of nuclear weapons-related provocations by Pyongyang to coincide with the U.S. presidential election in November. Our correspondent Kim Jong-sil reports.
The fifth meeting of the Extended Deterrence Strategy and Consultation Group, or EDSCG, between South Korea and the U.S. took place in Washington on Wednesday local time. For the first time at the meeting, the two countries conducted a scenario-based discussion on North Korea's nuclear threats to strengthen policy planning and coordination. South Korea's first Vice Foreign Minister Kim Yoon told reporters after the meeting that the EDSCG discussed a range of possible provocations by Pyongyang and responses around the time of the upcoming U.S. presidential election. He said both Seoul and Washington believe a major provocation around that time cannot be ruled out as North Korea continues to enhance its nuclear capabilities and is continuing provocations including jamming GPS signals or sending balloons carrying waste. Kim and Deputy Minister for National Defense Policy Cho Chang-nae led the South Korean delegation, while Undersecretary of State for Arms Control and International Security Bonnie Jenkins and Acting Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Policy Kara Abercrombie led the U.S. delegation. The U.S. Department of Defense released a statement shortly after the meeting and said the U.S. reiterated its ironclad commitment to draw on the full range of its military capabilities, including nuclear, to support extended deterrence for South Korea. The statement added that both sides reaffirmed that any nuclear attack by the DPRK against the ROK will be met with a swift, overwhelming, and decisive response, adding that any nuclear attack by North Korea against the U.S. or its allies is unacceptable and will result in the end of that regime. The EDSCG serves as a key annual forum on security strategy affecting the Korean Peninsula and broader Indo-Pacific. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
The economy shrank 0.2% on quarter from April to June, unlike what it was in the first quarter. Cha Yoon-kyung has the details.
South Korea's economy contracted in the second quarter compared to the first quarter this year. According to data released by the Bank of Korea on Thursday, the country's gross domestic product from April till June shrunk by 0.2% compared to the previous quarter. It's the first time in 18 months for the on-quarter growth to be negative. This is mostly attributed to the base effect caused by a relatively high GDP growth of 1.3% in the first quarter. An increase in imports compared to exports was also behind the downturn. Production saw growth of 0.8% as manufacturing for transportation equipment rose. Exports also rose on the back of outbound shipments for automobiles and chemical products, but net exports dropped as imports for petroleum and natural gas products went up. Private spending also saw sluggish recovery as consumption of goods such as cars and clothing dropped, leading to a fall of 0.2%. Infrastructure and construction investment also fell compared to the previous quarter. Machinery investments, such as for semiconductor manufacturing equipment, decreased, while construction investment, which led the growth in the first quarter with an increase of 3.3%, also fell to 1.7% in the second quarter. However, on official front, the Bank of Korea noted that a downturn in the second quarter does not necessarily imply this will continue for the rest of the year.
The second half of the year, in fact, is seeing a recovery in domestic demand, as exports in the first half increased and good performances by companies have led to increased investment. As inflation also slows down, this will further improve the real income as well.
Meanwhile, the country's gross national income, the total amount of money earned by people and businesses, was up 0.9% on quarter as net factory income from the rest of the world decreased. However, the real gross national income fell by 1.4%, which the agency attributed to worsening of trade conditions. Net foreign income, which is calculated by subtracting the income sent abroad by foreigners and foreign firms operating within the country from the total income earned by Koreans from foreign sources, also fell compared to the previous quarter. Cha Yoon-kyung, Arirang News.
President Yoon resumed his policy dialogue today, this time in Gwangju. There, he pledged to foster the city further with a focus on AI and culture. Kim Do-yeon explains.
After a 2-month pause, President Yoon Suk-yeol was back on the road on Thursday for a public policy dialogue. This time in the southwestern city of Gwangju, he focused on 2 industries to foster the city further: AI and mobility-based advanced technology and culture. In fact, the dialogue was held at Gwangju Institute of Science and Technology.
저는 오늘 광주의 새로운 미래를 열어갈 3가지 비전을 제시하겠습니다. 첫째는 AI와 모빌리티로 미래 산업을 선도하는 첨단 기술 도시. 둘째는 문화로 빛나는 글로벌 문화 허브 도시이며, 셋째는 시민이 살기 좋은 활력 넘치는 도시입니다.
For AI mobility, Yoon made sure that the government will put in 53.4 billion Korean won, or around $40 million as per the plan, to support Gwangju's autonomous driving specialized materials and components district, which received designation in July 2023. President Yoon also issued direct orders on the spot, as is the nature of these policy dialogues, when a business owner suggested more administrative help is needed, such as lifting greenbelt restrictions for industries.
We are concerned that if approval and certification do not come by 2026 as scheduled, we won't be able to build the factory and expand globally.
그 그린벨트 해제 전제 조건에 관한 하여튼 협의를 꼭 마무리해서 올해 안에는 완결짓시다.
As for fostering the city as a nation's cultural hub, President Yoon pledged to put in 118 billion Korean won, or more than $88 million, for a new biennale exhibition hall in the city. Gwangju Biennale, started in 1995, has become Asia's oldest biennial of contemporary art and also one of the world's top 5. The Minister of Culture, who also joined the dialogue, emphasized the city's potential as it's already known for landmarks and activities.
Local 100 is actually designating 100 local landmarks and sites, but Gwangju actually has 5 designated. This is an amazing thing. Many other cities only have one spot.
In the meantime, President Yoon also pledged to make sure local public transport is expanded and upgraded along with the development. For example, as there will be the city's first shopping complex in 2027, Yoon pledged to make sure it's accessible to the public and doesn't create too much traffic. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
In the U.S., a teenager opened fire at his high school in the state of Georgia on Wednesday, killing at least 2 teachers and 2 schoolmates, in yet another appalling case of gun violence within America's academic arena. Lee Seung-jae has more.
As of July 2024, there were 35 incidents of shootings on school grounds and college campuses in the United States. That figure rose on Wednesday in the state of Georgia when a 14-year-old fired at students and teachers at Appalachia High School in Barrow County. 2 students and 2 teachers were killed, and 30 others were wounded in the shooting, and authorities are investigating whether the victims were targeted. Initial reports said just 9 were injured during the shooting, but that figure rose significantly. Police say the teenage shooter, who has been named as Colt Gray, surrendered to authorities quickly after being confronted. The local county sheriff said Gray was cooperating with authorities and would be charged with murder and tried as an adult. As police continue to question the suspect, no motive has been revealed, and it's unknown whether there was any connection between the shooter and the victims. Authorities also say they do not know yet how the shooter was able to obtain the firearm. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland said the U.S. Department of Justice was ready to provide support to the victims and their families, adding he was devastated for the families involved. President Joe Biden also said he was mourning those who were killed, while calling on Congress to pass common-sense gun safety legislation. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
In other news, 2 of South Korea's major art fairs have opened, providing a wide variety of artworks. Our An Sung-jin went over to take a look at both KIAF Seoul and Frieze Seoul 2024.
2024 is the year when culture truly flourishes in South Korea, especially for art. KIAF Seoul, which first opened in 2002, is South Korea's first international art fair. This year's edition began on Wednesday and is hosted by the Galleries Association of Korea. It presents both traditional and contemporary art from a total of 206 galleries from 22 countries around the world. Another exhibition started on Wednesday as well, the 3rd edition of the Frieze Seoul. This year's Frieze Seoul Art Fair hosts more than 100 galleries from Asia and beyond with a focus on contemporary art. It aims to bring an array of work that represents the vibrant and dynamic art scenes both inside and outside of Korea.
Well, I like to think that Frieze Seoul provides a wide breadth of great art. They have some of the best artists in the world practicing. We have great institutions, great collector base. So I think Frieze Seoul choosing Korea was more of a validation of the incredible art scene that was already here.
The Frieze Art Fair is one of the world's most influential contemporary art fairs, being held in London, New York, and LA. Frieze Seoul 2024 showcases the history of art across the past 1,000 years through the Frieze Masters Corner, while the Focus Asia section displays 10 rising artists within Asia.
This Focus section is like an art fair, but it sponsors and supports experimental young artists and galleries. Through these solo booths, you can enjoy a lot of experimental artwork that has a sense of freedom.
Frieze Seoul this year delves into a number of Korean artists like Baek Nam-jun, Park So-bo, and Seo Do-ho, and puts the spotlight on other renowned artists such as Yayoi Kusama and Andy Warhol.
We've considered Korea as a market that we should try and break through. It's a market that's clearly in growth, and it's a market that we certainly don't want to miss out on.
The rich culture from these artist-run exhibitions adds to the cultural experience, and Frieze Seoul will run until September 7th, while KIAF Seoul until the 8th. An Song-jin, Arirang News.
At this time of year, nights in the capital get brighter thanks to a festival that displays media art on Dongdaemun Design Plaza's wide exterior wall. Our Park Kwon-woo takes you there.
A 222-meter wide facade showcasing media art illuminates the Seoul night. This is part of the Seoul Light DDP 2024 Autumn Festival that kicked off a week ago at Dongdaemun Design Plaza, a multicultural complex in central Seoul. The event has been lighting the night once a year since 2019, and twice a year in fall and again in winter from last year. The fall edition of this year's event is even more special as the venue Dongdaemun Design Plaza celebrates its 10th anniversary. The event mainly showcases media artworks inspired by the world-renowned abstract artist Kim Won-gi. Marking the 50th year since Kim's death, the 8-minute-long media art piece, Poetry of Time, reinterprets 9 of Kim's works drawn during his 40 years as an artist. It depicts Kim's intention to capture the essence of eternal time in his artwork, while reflecting the themes of life and love. Another 7-minute art invitation created by a media art label Verste is displayed afterwards, showcasing the decade-long journey of DDP as a Seoul landmark. At the site, other artworks created by renowned artists from Australia, the UK, and Switzerland are also displayed for people to enjoy. While around 500,000 people came to the fall edition event in 2023, expectations are high that even more people will visit this year.
The event has brought nearly 20% more people compared to last year. This weekend is estimated to be the peak, so we predict the total number of visitors to exceed 20%.
Among those visitors, it was easy to spot travelers from other countries.
It's very abstract for my taste, but it's very exciting, new, and especially like for an art form that shows the building itself in the nightlife of Seoul.
The more I look at it, the more I want to see it. I came here by chance but kept watching it. The silhouette, color and movement made me absorbed into the art.
The festival runs every night from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. until Sunday, so why not enjoy the night vibe of Seoul with inspirational media art? Park Kwon-woo, Arirang News.
100 Filipino caregivers who arrived last month started work here in the country this week as part of Seoul's pilot program to offer more affordable childcare. Our economics correspondent Moon Hae-ryun joins me in the studio to tell us more. Hae-ryun, give us some background as to why the program has been introduced.
Well, Changmin, South Korea's population crisis remains a top priority for the government. The fertility rate has hit record lows yearly, reaching 0.72 last year, the world's lowest, and far below the level needed for a stable population. Experts point to demanding jobs, stagnant wages, and rising living costs as key factors. Dual-income households have surged as a result, surpassing 6 million last year, with over half of families with young children having both parents working full-time. This is reflective of changing social and economic dynamics in the country as more women pursue careers and contribute to their families' financial well-being, with living costs going up and changing views on gender roles. Despite growing demand for childcare services, the government says there's a shortage and existing options are too costly.
And walk us through the details of this pilot program.
So, Changmin, the pilot program came into talks last year as part of the government's efforts to address the ticking demographic time bomb. Last month, it was all set into motion as 100 Filipino women landed at Incheon Airport with E9 visas that are limited to non-professional employment. Let's listen to what one of them had to say.
I was really surprised to hear that I'd been selected, and I was the envy of people around me. I'd like to make some Korean friends and enjoy the culture.
All 100 caregivers aged 24 to 38 completed over 780 hours of training and hold childcare certificates from the Philippine government. They passed background checks, a Korean language exam and an English interview. And over the past 4 weeks since their arrival, they've undergone mandated caregiver training run by the government to prepare them for the work they'll be doing for the next 6 months. The competition was just as fierce for their employers, with 731 South Korean households applying and only 157 being selected. The majority of those chosen for the pilot program were working parents with more than one child, with the target groups being working, single or expecting parents. Caregivers can be hired for 4 to 8 hours a day, and based on a 40-hour working week, their monthly wages total 2.38 million won, or nearly $1,800.
Hyun, is there any concerns, and how does the government plan to proceed with this program going forward?
Well, the government initially planned to expand the service to bring in more caregivers, up to 1,000 by 2028 if the 6-month pilot program is a success. But there are some concerns that need to be addressed first. $1,800 per month is no small sum for the average parent in South Korea, and it's being seen as one of the reasons why the majority of households that applied and were selected for the pilot program were located in the capital's wealthier areas. But the government faces a dilemma as lowering costs could lead to other issues.
Reducing wages could make it more difficult to secure workers, as foreign domestic workers have many other options once they get into Korea.
The vagueness of the work that pilot Filipino caregivers can do is also being raised as a problem. Guidelines stipulate that they cannot do anything unrelated to providing care for a child, such as doing the dishes or helping out with any household chores that do not directly benefit the child. But it could be difficult to differentiate between what they can or can't do. And this could be a reason why 15 selected households for the program cancelled on the first day that they were due to be matched with a caregiver, although no official reasons were cited. However, experts say that as this is a pilot program, this serves as a step for making improvements, and it could become a benchmark to tackle another demographic issue for the country.
It would be more realistic to view this as a policy experiment to test how foreign workers can be utilized in caregiving services for the elderly population in a super-aging society.
While this whole metropolitan government has drawn up a guideline to assist with work-related issues, discussions regarding pay are still underway.
All right, we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. Thanks for that report, Hyun.
Thank you for having me.
It has been raining on and off in Seoul since the afternoon. Rain clouds are developing sporadically, and it will rain on the east coast due to the easterly winds, and the temperature will be lower. Rain will start in eastern parts of Gangwon-do province at dawn tomorrow. It will expand to the northern parts of Gyeongsang-buk-do province in the morning. It will stop in the afternoon, but up to 40 millimeters will fall in the meantime. In other areas, 5 to 40 millimeters of showers will pass from morning to night. Tomorrow, most areas will start off at least 23 degrees Celsius. Highs will move up to 31 in Seoul, Daejeon, Gwangju, Daegu, and Gyeongju, Busan. The late heat will continue until the middle of next week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
And that is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.